want y'all to take yourself outside of formal mentorship that you would think of that happens in this industry. I pointed out previously where each of y'all are sitting in your organizations. We got C-level over here at the biggest utility. We've got about to be Madam President at WEF. We've got Board of Trustees at WEF, Director of the program. All of you are in a position to be mentors, might have had mentors, but I really want to know, when you think of standing on the shoulders of giants, like, who were your heroes? Whether it's someone you look to outside of the industry or inside, who are those heroes whose shoulders you feel like you're standing on that really kind of give you that strength to keep persevering through the BS?
So there's a few mentors, because I don't think it's a one and done.
Yeah.
When I think about my dad, who he grew up with 13 brothers and sisters in rural Ohio, and they're very poor, and he learned how the love of reading through his mom, who was a maid at one of the neighbors, the white, very affluent white woman's house. And that white woman had a library, and my grandmother asked if she could, learn to read and to take some of the books back. So she learned to read, and then she shared the love of reading to all of my aunts and uncles. And that group of people were very impressionable. They became doctors and lawyers and professionals. My dad got his PhD at Ohio State University, and I saw his work ethics, and I saw how he persevered. But I also saw how he was a little bit more like the Martin Luther King, a very peaceful civil rights activist. Now, my mother, she's also one of my heroes. And my mom is the first person to get up at a wedding and do the electric slide. She is opposite of my father, who's very demure and introvert and very, very academic. But my mom is like, hey. And so, but my mom is very smart. And she was my hero because she truly made lemonade out of lemon. She took adversity and turned it around to beauty. And everything about who I am is really from my heroes of my parents. The one that really persevered, that no matter what adversity hit him, he was going to rise to the top, to the PhD. My mom, who on face value, you wouldn't think she was like the smart person, and yet all through her life, she was an RN. She was head of, supervisor of nurses. She worked and raised 4 children, and she had a great personality and a great love of giving. And I guess what I learned is that you can't outgive in life, that the more you give to people or to life, the more it comes back to you. Don't worry about what's going to be returned. Just give without expectations. And so those are my heroes. It's kind of cheesy, but it is who I am today. It's what makes me tick. Yeah. It's the voice, and although my parents have passed away, they're the voices in my head that say nobody's going to put me down or make me feel inferior. Like Eleanor Roosevelt said, no one will make me feel inferior without my permission. And so I am all about power for the people, which is my mama side, which is a Malcolm X side, and my daddy side.
Sounds like my mother's side.
Let's do a kumbaya, like Martin Luther King side.
Yeah.
But I've got both of them in my blood, running through my veins, and it's who I really, those are the shoulders I stand on.
I knew we were going to be friends because I feel the same. My dad is definitely that work ethic, and my mom gave me the permission to be me.
Yes. Oh, go ahead, girl. Give me dad.
Not too different, I would say, because I don't even know how many children his father had, but he was one of many. But he was a PhD in chemistry. And so I can even remember, that's the gifts that he would give, were the chemistry sets and the, exposure to like STEM things. And, as I grew older, I realized that was really his passion. So his passion was really education, but specifically education of STEM in developing countries. And so he taught in Nigeria, he taught throughout the Caribbean and elsewhere. And a lot of his legacy is wanting us to, in the wake of colonialism, to be able to have the tools to solve our own problems. And so he was the first chancellor of the Caribbean Examinations Council. And for those people in the Caribbean, for the longest while, we had to do UK exams with a UK lens. And he was the first person in charge of when we got to do our own exams. And that was the exams that I got to do as a kid. And, he was always really encouraging me, but there was one thing that we were very clear on: do not fail chemistry. He will teach you whatever you need to do, but you can't fail chemistry. And he really encouraged my love of like science.
Yeah.
And, to where it became that it was never a question that I could do this, even when I had professors who were like, women don't belong in engineering. And, you look around and you see people who don't look like you, but I always had that sort of background, and my mother's a doctor.
Yeah.
So he had 3 kids, and 2 of them are engineers and 1 are a doctor. So it was just never a question to me that this was possible.
Yeah.
Right.
But he really fostered that love for me. But then a big thing for him was exposing a lot of people in developing countries, especially the Caribbean, to scientists and to engineers and to what is possible. So that, to me, that's really important. And I think that's sort of the legacy that I kind of live out as a result. I can't fail because he did.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, I echo those, but just from the standpoint of my mom. Growing up in a single parent family, raising 3 kids, she taught us how to work right from the get-go. And you don't know what you don't know. Like, we didn't know we were poor. You know, we thought everyone in the summertime went to a school to get a lunch. It's like, we didn't know we didn't have any money, but she would do her best, to, shield us from that. But it taught us a work ethic. It's like, oh, you want something? You go out there and, go shovel. You go out there and cut grass. You go out, and it's like, that's, I think the thing that she's given me is that work ethic.
Right.
And it's something, and the other part about that too is she's somebody who like always believed in you, almost to a detriment, because it'd be like you come back thinking you just accomplished something that you could not accomplish ever in life. Mom, I just saved 4 cats in the tree. Well, I knew you could do it, baby. It's like nothing impressed her because she thought that you could do anything.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's like, oh man, I just won a Nobel Prize. I knew you could do it. But it was like she always believed in me. So
That's
it's like
awesome.
that's gotta be my hero right there.
Yeah.
And my mentor.
Love it.
I had a few other work mentors. I don't say not even work mentors, but work heroes. When I seen them doing stuff, I was like, ooh, that's possible. From a distance looking in. So, but yeah, I got to go back to my mom.
That's really cool.
Yeah. When you talk about sponsors, and I know some people are still kind of unfamiliar with all of the different sort of categories of advocating for one another and bringing more people to the table. So can you kind of talk about what that looks like, what those different levels of being a part of the solution look like?
Right. Well, in order to really have a sponsor, you have to be sponsorable. And being sponsorable starts with performance. You're not going to get there through entitlement or by the color of your skin or by your gender or your sexual preference. It doesn't matter, because what a sponsor does, they put in their reputational chips on the table on your behalf. And they're only going to do that if they believe in you and if you have demonstrated like proven performance. And so being a sponsor is about someone there believes in you and trusts you. And the order for them to trust you is not just performance, that's where it starts, but it is nurtured through trust and for developing relationships. Not even relationships where you're talking about business, but relationships about who that person is, how to have that connective tissue between that person and you. Like when I used to go into interviews, one of the things I would do is immediately look in the interviewer's office for the pictures on their wall or the tchotchkes on their desk to see what was important to them and see how what was important to them, how I could connect with that. And so being a sponsor, you want to have some connective tissue and you want to have a relationship where they trust you. Now, that's a sponsor. And sometimes people have a sponsor, don't even know they have a sponsor. There
I
are
was
people.
about to say that because I'm thinking
Yeah.
about the question and I'm like, do I have one?
Yeah, you probably do. Most of us have had a sponsor or we wouldn't be where we are today. But we may know it and sometimes we don't know it. Oftentimes we don't even know it. That's why you never know who's watching you, right? And everybody's watching you. So pay attention, you know? The thing about mentor, it's great too. It's developmental. It's people that we can trust, but they speak with us. They speak to us. They help nurture our skill set and help give us some really, sometimes truth serum, right? But they speak to us. They don't speak on our behalf. And a mentor is not always at the table of the decision maker. And a mentor can be a younger employee. It could be an employee at a different level than you are. It could be a mentor. A lot of people like to go for the top of the house mentors. Most of the time, they're not even available. They don't have the bandwidth as much as other mentors. So my recommendation, if you're truly looking for a mentor, don't think of just mentoring engagements. I tell people and my employees, look for mentoring moments. Sometimes it's a one conversation, a one-off. Sometimes it's a week. Sometimes it's a month. Sometimes it's a lifetime. And, you know, so from a mentoring standpoint, that's what my thoughts. Yeah.
And then to go to your point when you mentioned sponsors, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that irritates me to no end is when people say they're self-made whatever. And I'm like, I'm a self-made this. I did this all myself. Chances are somebody helped you out along the way.
Absolutely.
Whether you know it or not.
Even if they're
And
daddy.
you know what? That's good. You had the character, you had the trust, you had the performance that somebody's seen something in you to actually believe in you and speak in your behalf, whether you know it or not.
That's
but
right.
it's just, it drives me nuts. It's like, I did all this by myself.
Yeah.
No, everyone has benefited from a sponsor if
That's
you got
right.
to a certain spot in life.
Right on.
That's true. And that's a good reminder that you may not know.
You may not know.
You may not know.
I'm sure I have them. I just don't necessarily know. Mentors I do, but sponsors not so much.
I have people I sponsor all the time and they don't know I'm their sponsor. They're just doing their job. They don't even know.
And why are you doing it? You don't go out there just to blow your horn and say, hey, you know, I'm helping you out. It's like, yeah, I want to help you out, but it's not about me. It's
Right.
about the other person.
But it's also about leaving your legacy. What legacy do you want to leave behind? Because as you've heard this saying, people won't know what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel.
My
Yep.
Angelou.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not just about our job. It's about what we leave behind.
Well, thank you for teeing that up because that was going to be my next. You talked about legacy first. You just talked about legacy. Breaking news, but all of y'all are going to be the shoulders of the giants that other people are also going to be standing on. Y'all are already becoming heroes of this industry in that sense. And so, yeah, that is my question. What is the legacy that y'all hope, what is the path that you hope to pave and leave behind for others when y'all get the retirement and the benefits that you deserve when you get to go sit on the beach in Barbados for the rest of
That sounds wonderful.
Yes, it does.
So what is that legacy y'all want to leave?
So I know for me, when I first took over this program, it didn't have any personality. It didn't have a face. It didn't have any warmth. It was very transactional. Come get your education, go home.
Yeah.
And I wanted to change that. I wanted to have a personality. I wanted it to actually touch people on a different level. And so basically, I give my number out to all my classes.
Yeah.
I see about 500 students a year, so multiply that by like 8 or 9 years. Half of New York State operators has my number. So I want to be available to them. And there's two things that I really enjoy about my job. Is one, yes, we are creating the next generation of water stewards, you know, to care for our water. But at the same time, I know that I'm helping them on a personal level. These folks get certified, they get in a position to get a better job. That affects their family.
Right.
Right? So it's like, you know what? That's what I want to be known for in this industry. That guy right there helped me out.
Right.
And when I get those, I got a whole folder in my computer of thank you letters. And it's like, I love when somebody comes back and they write a letter, thank you so much, I just got certified, I got a raise, this, that, and the other, and it's like, you know, I'm off.
That's something.
I'm gone.
That's great.
And it's like, so I keep that folder. So when I'm having my bad days, let me go open this folder up and go through it and remind yourself why you're here and let that be your legacy in this industry.
So I mean, I would say when I started this, I think one of my mentors, the probably longest one, I told him I wanted to be famous, but I wanted to be famous because like of technical stuff,
Yeah.
and I hardly even do that anymore. And that's great. I mean, it's really awesome to see like wastewater plants that you worked on that get built, and obviously they're serving communities and stuff. But I had an interaction with a client several years ago, and it was related to sort of MBE reporting, but they asked us what the composition of my workplace looked like, and we had to report that every quarter. And in between, task orders, I had not submitted it. I had taken over from someone, and she was like, no, you need to give me all the back reports that you haven't submitted for the last however months. So I was like, I'll contact my HR department. But I have all the other stuff, but give me a moment, I've got to get to them. And they looked at me and they were like, well, that's great, but you don't really need to submit that because I've been looking at that for several years and you've never changed. Oh. And I was like, really? And so for all the stuff that we were talking about, diversity and how, we valued that, when I went back and looked at it and, being the engineer that I am, plotted it. And sure enough, exactly the same.
Wow.
And I think that was like a real shift for me of that is the legacy that I was like, oh my God, like you see it visually, but then to see it in numbers like that it was, okay, I have to do something because otherwise who is going to be? And so that is sort of when I leave, I would like change and I would like to see that number change. And I would, that's the legacy I would want to leave. And in the position that I am, using that to advocate for that. There's a lot of folks doing the technical stuff, but can we actually change that number?
Mm-hmm. Nice. Legacy.
Legacy
Lisa.
Legacy Lisa, LL. I think for me, I grew up, again, not a lot of money. And I was a little chubby bubby. They called me the Rolling Stone or Lisa Pizza. And I was harassed throughout school. And I said, hop. And I went to a private school. My parents did sacrifice to bring me through a private school. And most of them were doctors and lawyers and had tons of money. I'm like, and most of them were white. And I said, how in the world am I going to beat these white people? And I said, I know what. I'm going to beat them on my brains, and I'm going to be smarter than them.
Oh, so you're talking about academics?
Academic.
All right.
Yeah. That beat up. So listen, I became valedictorian. Thank you. I became valedictorian, right? And I was telling you earlier today, they didn't let me do the valedictorian speech. They decided to take it to Jace Miller, and he did the senior class president speech. And then 40.
I love that you remember.
I know. That's
Yes.
right.
And then 40 years prior to that time of my life, my dad graduated from Cincinnati, Ohio high school as a valedictorian. He didn't get a chance to do the valedictorian speech. Wow. And so one of the things that I believe in is to empower all people. I don't care if you're white, black, polka dot, and I don't care what you are, where you come from. In fact, I relish the fact that you're different. I love it when you have a different diversity of thought. I love it when you come from a different country. I get so excited because my goal is to see every country in the world. I'm about halfway there, and that's one of my goals. And it's not a goal for me to share my knowledge and be so confident that I have something to give to them. It's to learn from other people. And I think one of the things I really want people to leave my legacy is that everybody feels special when they interact with me. Everybody feels that they can do something they didn't think they could do before, the day before, that they are amazing human beings, they're smart, they have what it takes to get it done. I believe in these people, and I always want my legacy to be about empowerment of women. Women, when we look at job descriptions, we'll see 10 job things, descriptions, and we'll say, oh my gosh, we don't have 10 out of 10. Oh, I can't go for that job. But a man will say, I got 3 out of 10. I'm good. And so, you know, as women, we do ourselves a disservice by negative self-talk. We have to say our 3 is good enough. We'll hire the other 7 because that's what everybody else does. People are not at the top of the house in authorities or water utilities because they're the smartest human beings on this planet. Is because they had sponsors, that they had somebody who was leaving a legacy, whether it was their parent or someone they worked with inside or outside their organization. So for me, it's really about empowering every single person, whether it's a child, where I go to a different country and I go to their schools and donate a day or so of my time just to, you know, participate in their schooling, or whether it's just having a conversation. You know, there's so many things in America that are challenging. As you get older, we've talked about LGBTQA, we've talked about people of color, we've talked about women, but we also haven't talked about ageism. Baby boomers are still here. They're not retiring. We thought they were going to retire, but they're still here. And there's still ageism on everything. And when we speak English, there's entitlement and privilege. When we come from and have a job, there's privilege. When we are white male, there's privilege. When we're a black female, especially a light-skinned black female like myself, there's privilege. And so we could either use our privilege to help people and to empower people, or we can let it go to waste. And so I really think we're here on this planet to really help everybody. And one thing about water, why I'm so passionate about water, is that what connects this world? What's in between all the continents of this world? Water.
Yep.
Water is our connective tissue. It's what makes us who we are. And so if anything to be passionate about, it's water.
Look how we sucked you in after 2 years.
I know you did, Chuck, man.
The other thing I would have to add to a legacy, and I would get myself in a lot of trouble if I did not say this, is trying to raise the level of professionalism amongst operators. Trying to help people to see the value, trying to help them see the value in themselves, trying to set an example for other operators that you can do other things other than turn valves and push buttons. You can be in leadership. You can do this, you can do that. And I get asked that question all the time. It's like, you're not an engineer? No, I'm just an operator. Well, now I teach a little bit. But it's like, I want to raise the value of that profession of an operator.
Raise the bar?
I am going to raise the bar.
That's good.
No, but that's a good one in how people see themselves, because I know that there was a lot of movement probably before I even started doing this of really referring to us intentionally as like water professionals and including operators. And then, you know, some operators sort of saying up till last year when we were at WEFTEC of, when I see the word professional, I don't see me in it. And it feels like it's excluding. And so it was like, no, we actually meant that all of us are professionals in this water space. And so, you know, it was a lesson in that where you're talking about as to how we see ourselves sometimes, not how other people see us, but also the words you use. You may have good intentions, but sometimes it's being received. And honestly, it how it's received is probably the part that you need to pay attention to. But yeah, I think
that's a big one for me. And I just historically, operators have been out of sight, out of mind.
That's right.
And so you don't value them until you got to replace them. So it's like, no, what about when they're there?
When COVID came, they were showing up every single day, whereas the staffers, they were working from home. These are definitely our unsung heroes.
And so the other thing that hit me, I'm working on a campaign now, but the other thing that hit me is when COVID hit and we were thanking all the essential workers, where were the operators?
Yeah.
You know what? Guess how worse the situation would have been without clean water and someone to take care of your wastewater.
Talk about ourselves like that.
I know.
And I think we need to.
But the DoorDash person. Essential.
The liquor stores.
The liquor stores, essential.
The water you use to rinse out your glass between drinks, not essential. Like, what is up with that? I don't know. Expected, I guess. Yeah. Taken for granted.
But I mean, as I grew up, like sometimes it wasn't a automatic that I turned on the tap and water was coming out. But I think people here just very much take that for granted.
Absolutely.
That you do that, it's coming out magic. We don't really need to know how it happens, but it happens. And that's not how I necessarily grew up.
I was in Tanzania 2 weeks ago, and the women were carrying these big jugs of water on their head without using their hands, carrying it for miles to their homes and to their villages. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, water, one of the mantras of DC Water is life. And it's true. We are the essential we're essential to this world.
Yeah.
When you talk about legacy and the way that you talked about legacy, you can feel the purpose and the mission, the passion, and that really speaks to me. And I think that when you come and really serve, because in this industry we're all serving, when you come from that place, you come from a place of like you're trying to get from this point to this point in terms of making things better, and that's your vision, like the vision that you see. And I think that a lot of times, though, when we, the folks that are kind of paving that vision, we do ourselves a disservice by not helping people see what we see and making that unseen seen. And we just jump into the task force or the tactics, but we don't know where we're going because we haven't communicated that vision yet. And I feel like each one of you brings that to the table. And so I'm going to ask y'all to close your eyes.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me what you see when you think about the vision of the future that you want to leave behind when you leave this industry.
You have to find the people in your inner circle that you can confide in and that you can talk to, that lift you up, but also who are truth tellers. Because friends don't just nod and say what you want to hear. They'll also say, girl, Paul. They'll be like,
Pump the brakes.
Yeah.
This is a bad idea.
Yeah. You need to, So